Hello and welcome to the Un Beyond Mindset podcast. My name is Marisol Uribe, your host, aka Enfermera Marisol.
Hey,
And that is book that just fell. Boom. How are you doing, Leo?
well, good morning. My name is Leo. I'm doing well. I got to show everybody my shirt. Stand up a little bit.
Yes, Un Beyond.
There
Love
you
it.
go.
Love
I'm
it.
very honored to be on your podcast. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, Leo. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. And Leo is a qualified broker in the state of New Mexico. And so go ahead and tell us a little bit about you. Where were you, say, 2 years ago? And let's start from there.
All right. Well, just like Marisol mentioned, I'm a qualifying broker. What that means is I do real estate, right? And where was I a couple years ago? Would you say, or 2 years ago exact?
It doesn't have to be exact. More so, I want to know your story.
I was born and raised here in New Mexico. Both of my parents are from Mexico. They're from Chihuahua, right? And I know it's not
Viva
common,
Chihuahua.
Chihuahua. So um, it's not very common. When I go to California, I feel like I'm the anomaly because I never find other people from Chihuahua there. So, um, however, before I did real estate, I was just trying to be successful. There was really no direction for a lot of you Latinos out there where you don't have a family member that set the path, that you're the one carving the path. So that was me. I was just going in trying to be successful any way I could. So my school days, I was always a troublemaker. I was involved with the wrong people. In middle school, high school, my life started changing, and I was going to go to the military shortly after high school, but
Oh,
I had
wow.
gotten a scholarship to go to the college here. So my mom begged me, she's like, "Mijo, don't go to the military, try the college." And in high school, I only had like a 2.3 grade point average. I've always worked my whole life. I was doing 40 hours a week at a place called Blake's Slaughterburger, which is similar to In-N-Out out there. So
During
I
high
would work
school.
40 hours a week. What was that?
During high school.
During high school, yes. So um, I went into college and I actually loved college. I really loved it. Was more of the experience, and I had a 3.4 GPA, and it wasn't because I was smart, it was because I loved it. So I ended up staying in college, and I got my degree in sociology and communication. Um, but after that, during the time of college, I was a bank teller at Wells Fargo. And I thought I wanted to be an FBI agent. Ironically, there was an FBI building right next to my branch. And, thank you to all those gentlemen for our service. But then I would see how paranoid they were. Like they didn't have
Mm,
peace of mind. Like they'd go into the bank. And then I would see some of them at the gym I would work out, and I couldn't even say hi.
living low, undercover.
Yes, looking over your shoulder. And I just noticed that they were really uncomfortable. And
I
I said,
see.
I don't want to live that life. But being exposed to finances, you you all of a sudden start developing this ambition to get a better be in a better financial standpoint, because I would deal with a bunch of different clientele. Well, I towards the end of my career of college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? I didn't want to do what I got my degree in. I was a banker at this point, and I didn't like it. I really didn't have to do anything. Just show up, clock in. My job didn't require much. I was in a little office, but for me, I felt like I could do more. So one of my
Yes.
buddies out in El Paso told me to try real estate, and I was a broke college student, credit card maxed out. And I said, you know what? I'll go try it. What do I have to lose? And then I gained some love for real estate, and that's what got me into real estate. And I'm here. I'm here now. I guess
Brilliant.
doing real estate.
Great. Well, congrats. I mean, it seems like you were finding your way. You mentioned how your grade point average wasn't as high to begin with, but then it turned into a 3.4 during your university years. And I want to make an emphasis that it's because you quote unquote loved it.
Yes.
And a lot of us were going through life lacking that direction, seeking that guidance. And it sounds like you found some mentors pointing you into the direction of something that's more attractive to you in terms of career options. And
Yes.
so you just went from there, right?
Yes. And you highlighted it. Love, right? You just said it. Like you gotta love it. And one book that changed my life was called the 6 Months to Six Figures, and it's by Peter Voog. And a lot of younger entrepreneurs, they don't know how to reach out to mentors. They're a little bit intimidated. That book, word for word, taught me how to reach out to a mentor. And literally, I was typing that out to my buddy in El Paso, and then I sent it, and it worked. And I'm like, oh my God, this book's amazing, right? But I just started following direction because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And there's some entrepreneurs that they stay stagnant when they don't know what to do instead of taking action. And for me, it was like, okay, what does every smart person do? Read a book. So then I started reading a book, right? And nobody recommended this book. I just looked up books. At the time, books to get rich. And that book popped up, and I right away became passionate about reading that book.
6 months to six figures. How old were you at the time? Do you recall?
I believe I think I was 20 years old.
20. That's a good age to get exposed into this entrepreneurial real world. And tell me about your parents. Did they want you to have a traditional 9 to 5? Did they initially seem a little perturbed about you going out and getting a commission job?
Well, that's actually a great question. Because my mom was my tax person at the time. So I remember
Mm.
my parents always wanted greatness for me. However, being immigrants, they always played the safe role. They didn't know the path, so they always gave you the safe advice, like, no, get this job, like it'll be more secure, right? So my first year in real estate, I had a couple issues my first year. And my mom looked at my tax return and said it was literally like $8,000. And with the write-offs, it
Mhm.
was negative 8,000. So when she looked at my tax form, she's like, Mijo, you need to get out of real estate, right? She told me that.
Ooh,
And she
what
didn't
a
think about it.
discouragement. Yeah,
My mother
yeah.
wasn't thinking. She just said it at the moment. She didn't know what fragile mindset I was in, right? Because when you're beginning your career, you have these evil voices in your head saying you can't do it.
Mhm.
This is the wrong path. So the following next year, I made more money in my first month than I made that whole last year. And that's when they started to believe. My father was always supportive and is like, they're just good vibes. So my father was just, his advice was, um, you're going to fall down harder. He says, so just learn how to get back up. Literally, he just told me that.
Sold.
And he was just always good energy, never questioned what I was doing, just supportive of in whatever I did. Mother was more safe, mama bear, but now she's a part of my team. So she's just seen the growth grow so much from the scratch, but she's also seen the habits, so she saw the whole journey. So she kind of sees the results of it, and she sees the potential in real estate.
Perfect. Let's go back to when you made that shift in habits, both mentally and I'm sure physically also with your day-to-day routines. Was there a book that triggered that? Was it just your inner momentum? from that drive that you received of her being cautious of you? And how did you go about that initially? It's amazing how you went from like negative income to so much in 1 month that exceeded your and maybe her expectations.
Yes, well, this is gonna sound cheesy, and I don't push religion on anybody, right? A lot of successful people say you got to be successful financially, mentally, and spiritually, right? And the one thing I lacked was spiritually at the time. But being an entrepreneur, I don't care what business you're in, when you're starting off, it's gonna knock you down to your knees. So um, I started tying back my beliefs to the Bible, right? I wasn't too religious at the time, but then, the power of faith moves mountains. So then, as an
Yes.
entrepreneur, I became obsessed with stuff I don't see, right? You got to have faith, believing in something you don't see. So for me at the time, yes, I was having all these voices in my head, like it's hard, all the doubts, things, all the bad things. But then my power of faith and believing in something I don't see is what kept me going, because other people are not going to see it for me. It's I didn't Gary V my mom, right? When Gary Vaynerchuk says F your parents, because if you tell that to your parents as a Latino, it's not
Oh
gonna go
yeah. I've
good.
no, no, no. You cannot go there.
And they come from a good heart. They didn't see it, but the power of faith and believing yourself as to be the leader, right? The disruptor in your family. If you're the disruptor, there's times where you're gonna be the black sheep until you become highlighted, right? They're not going to know what you're doing. They're going to be questioning your habits, your decisions, not to show up to certain family events. But after you make it, then that's when they glorify you and they see why you did what you did. So, to answer your question, that was the power of faith. One of my favorite speeches, believe it or not, when I was at my lowest, right? Because my dad's advice, you're going to fall down, it's about getting back up, um, was a resilience speech by Eric Thomas. When he talks about your why,
Yes. Eric
that's a
Thomas is
great
great.
speech. So I had my speeches when I felt down, the same speeches, and I play them to this day. And so when I'm feeling at my lowest, there's another speech. I forgot who's the speaker behind it. It's called "I Am a Champion." Tool.
Repeat after us, everyone. I am a champion.
I am a champion. Yes, and I had my go-to. I had my habit, right? You got to celebrate things, and we all have habits to. When we succeed, we have a habit of celebration. But I also had a habit of when I felt that my morale was down, so I could get back up faster and get the job done.
That's key because a lot of people can resort to alcohol, drinking, just being around the wrong crowd again. But no, that's the moment where you need a lot of mental toughness to propel you to keep moving forward. To not sleep in that next
No.
day and just to face your problems and your situations, your next clients head on as if nothing happened to you, as if you're unmoved.
Yes, yes, and like you said, it's mental toughness, and I had to admit when I was beginning, I didn't have uh, a lot of mental toughness. But the one thing that developed it, and I call it rhino skin, right, was just not giving up. Sometimes, reading books will get you ahead of the game, of course. Sometimes it's the cheat code, right? Because a book could expose you to so much information. But for some of us, I wasn't too much of a great reader at the time. I just didn't give up. I would just show up. If I felt good or bad, I would just show up. And I think being exposed to corporate job and actually having a job before, because a lot of us, it gets into our head, we're 1099, we're independent contractors, we're not required to do anything, right? I still
I could
treated it
wake
as
up whenever I want. Yeah.
right, and I wore my suit because that was, I'm not saying wear a suit, but that was my ritual to feel good. I wore my suit, I shaved my face, my shoes were shiny. I was in the office at 9 a.m. Even if I had nothing going on, 9 a.m., I would leave at 5. And every day I would just create activity. I wouldn't give up. I had activity, right? Everybody thought I was successful before I was successful because I dressed the part, I talked the part, and I was always busy with activities. If I didn't have any prospects yet, I was meeting with people for coffee, picking their brain, right? Catching up with people that I haven't talked to in a while because everybody's a prospect. So I kept activity and I didn't give up. And throughout that, I started developing mental toughness.
Question for you, Lil. Initially, when you got into real estate, that buddy that you contacted, did he become your initial mentor or did he point you to somewhere where else, someone else, another company? How does that work?
He was my initial mentor. It's just that buddy was at a growing point too in his career path. So then it went from initial mentor to kind of going our separate ways. He had a fallout with his business partner in El Paso. So it was like I had to pick sides, and I didn't like to do that. For me, I was like, you know what, guys, adios. I'm going back to New Mexico, right? So he was the stepping stone to real estate. You know, he exposed me to the madness, right? And at the time, he also exposed me to how to be successful in a buyer's market. Right now, the market is shifting and everybody's worried. So I didn't know what leads were. I didn't know what paid leads were. I learned organic business. But the power of not knowing could also be good, right? Because I didn't know paid leads. I didn't know you could have gone independent or a team. All I did was, hey, come do real estate with me. I went, call this, do this, and you're on the team and whatever. I didn't question anything. All I did was follow the order and did my role, right? Later down after that experience, I found out there was paid leads. I found out you could have gone. I found out everything I should have done up front.
So you were coachable. You listened to what
Yes,
he said. And then upon realizing paid leads and all this, I'm sure as you executed, your return was that much greater and you were able to perform faster, correct?
correct. It's like you're reading me. You almost know me already.
It's
Really
good.
smart
No,
for sure.
I feel like a lot of successful people, they have these common themes, these trends. And so I hope if you're listening or watching this right now, you're catching on because the list of my speakers will just continue to get more diversified and they're going to come from different backgrounds. So you're the first real estate person on the show. So
Yeah.
definitely paving the way for that, for more brokers, realtors. And
Well,
so along this point, tell me, how did you end up with Keller Williams? Where are you at now today?
where I'm at now, so I actually left Keller. I was an associate broker. So the difference, associate broker is like a beginning realtor, right? I wasn't allowed to have my own office or be a supervisor for people. I was a team lead, but I was a supervisor. So I moved on to Realty One of New Mexico, where I'm a qualifying broker to where people could be a part of my team or they could have their own team under me or be independent, right? And I'll get into the room for growth. What got me there now, though, was towards the end of my journey, I was under the top producing team here at the time in New Mexico, and I became the top
Congratulations.
performer. Yes, and I hit there's a book called The Law of the Lid, right? And I hit the lid. I just felt like I wanted to learn more, but I couldn't. So I went to the Driven event, saw these young, successful entrepreneurs, right? And I'm like, here I am, I have all this knowledge, but I just don't have the courage to take the leap, right? Because of the safety.
Mm.
So then I started my team, which is Ados Real Estate Services, and I was a team lead as an associate broker. So I moved my team with Keller. I started developing more knowledge, and I right away saw that, people were a lot of team members blinded by the splits, right? How much money am I getting? And of course, sometimes that's not the right mindset. When you're beginning, you should just be focused on knowledge. However, I didn't want people to leave me, so then I became a qualifying broker to the point where they have the option of being on the team or they have an option of being independent under me. And we're still invested into one another. So where I'm at now is I have around, I want to say 12 people, and they're all great team members. A lot of them started brand new in the industry. They've all have deals, are all really knowledgeable. And I'm just very grateful.
It sounds like you're very proud of your team. And 12 people, wow, from just being just you. In what matter of time did you go from one to 12?
It was 2 years, 2 years. And for me, my focus was one of my other mentors. He mentioned if you want to start a successful business, you got to make it appear as if it's been around for years. So when I started my company, I focused on the operation right away, right? I wasn't even focused on sales. It was building a website, your mission statement, your core ethics, your goal, um, who's the roles, right? Do you have in real estate? We need to have a paperwork person, right? So a marketer. So I right away started focusing more on the operation. Once the operation was trained and got strong, and that's when we took off. My paperwork person, I was finding experienced paperwork people, but they weren't coachable, right? So I went through four of them, but I wouldn't give up, right? A lot of people would have thrown the towel. I just kept trial and error. I found one that was brand new, has never done TC work, was a broker for 6 years. Now she's one of the best transaction coordinators in the industry. People try to steal her from me all the time. But
Ooh, you're not letting go of that one.
oh no, of course not. No, I'm very grateful for her. She's the backbone of the business. And the reason is she super coachable, but to the point where I didn't micromanage. I gave an outline of what I knew. She developed the
Her
operation,
system.
and she's super successful at it because it's her creation to the point where now I'm being taught. So once the operation grew, that was within the span of the year. Literally, the following 3 months, I went from 2 team members, 4 team members, 6 team members. It grew immediately in a small time point. My operation just blew up, right? And it was because the success made the noise. I had a well-oiled system to the point where people saw pending, 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 close, close, and it created the law of attraction. The only problem for me is I created the law of attraction all at the same time. So
Too
I,
fast.
it was intense, yes. And there was a guy. Do you remember Roman James from the Driven events?
Roman James.
Well, I
So
think.
started going just last year.
Well,
For
he's
those of you listening, drivenevent.com, it's a company founded by Albert Preciado, also a Mexican American, first gen over here. And definitely check it out. It's one of those events where you could have paradigm shifts. And Leo, you could speak of one, I could speak of one. And it's just that exposing you to other quote unquote successful people because everyone defines success differently. And we'll get into that later with my highlight question. What does un beyond mindset mean to you? and how are you committed to achieving it? So stay tuned for that. Leo's answer to that question will be toward the end of the show. So let's continue on, Leo, with
Yeah, and I call Albert Preciado the comandante, right? Because he's the one who helped me build my courage to start my business. And I recommend it to a lot of entrepreneurs just because you're exposed. You know, you come in, especially in, I love my state of New Mexico is beautiful. I love the food. There's good food everywhere, by the way. But sometimes you feel like you can't find the right circle, and you feel like you're
Mhm.
alone in your journey. So when I went over there, I was exposed, right? My eyes saw young,
Yes.
successful entrepreneurs, and it just gave me the confidence. So, jumping into answering the question, one advice that Roman James guy gave was, "Don't be afraid to bite off more than you could chew," and that hit me right in
Mm,
between the eyes, right?
right.
Because your whole life, don't bite off more than you could chew. Take it slow, right? This
Mhm.
one guy said, "Don't be afraid to bite off more than you could chew." And when that happened and my team grew and all the other teams were like, "Leo, you're going to crash and burn. You're going too fast."
Mm,
And I
mm.
said, "Well, I'm only going to crash and burn if I'm mentally defeated." Well, I remember,
That's huge.
yes, yes,
Mental defeat. It ties back again with the mindset, you guys. That's why we're stressing. This is so important. You need to feed your mind what you need to get to your goals. Great point, Lil.
yes, yes. So, it going back to the drawing board too, right? We get to a certain level, but sometimes going down to the basics. So here I was, brand new big team, all new people, and all I did was show up. We planned a group meeting, first meeting, said, "What the hell am I going to talk about?" I was super nervous, but then I did what I did best from the very start, and that was show up. So all I did was show up. They didn't notice. I gave a great meeting. They didn't know I was super nervous. They didn't know it was my first group meeting. But then thereafter, it's a very calculated meeting, one-on-ones. So it grew because of the action. It didn't grow because I had a strategy or a plan in mind. It grew because I had the courage to show up and just start presenting on what I know, and then it started growing into a more systemized meeting. So a lot of
Bravo.
my success is just showing up. It's there's no secret. All I and I still do that. I show up. And the operation just keeps growing.
Do you have an executive assistant?
Yes.
And how do you go about with the training of your staff?
Well, the training, the way it started was, again, I set the outline for my executive assistant. And I said, "Hey, this is what I'm going to have you do." Right. One of it was handle the marketing side of things. I showed her the standard, but then I gave her homework. I said, "I want you to create me 2 flyers, and I want them to be your creativity." So then I started sparking that role of leadership in her. So then she started creating her own flyers, right? Like her own designs. And then I said, "Wow, this is amazing," to the point where I started having her give me her insight. "Hey, I think we should do this. What do you think we should do?" "Well, I think we should do that. Let's try that." To the point where now she's fully grown in the operation. So the way I trained her was, it's like a speech. I gave her an outline. That's it. I did not micromanage every single piece, right? Because I didn't want an order taker. I wanted yes, an executive assistant is to help you, but if you're out of town, do you want your executive assistant to wait for you to give you an order, or do you want her to take initiative, right? So that's why
Initiative.
I kind of let her take leadership and make decisions for herself. That way, she's more confident in getting the job done because she feels like she created it.
beautiful. And it gives her more of a say, right? It's like you said, you started with an outline. Hey, this is how, these typically look, these flyers typically look. But then you gave her that creative outlet. So where she was free to design. And then I'm sure she's happy because you valued her work and her work is just shown in return.
Yes, yes. So it's now we're on my second one because she got her license, and now she's training the other executive
Good.
assistant.
The
So
circle continues.
yes, but it's like now I'm kind of hands off. It's like, hey, we're providing an exit strategy. I'm happy that you're a broker, right, under me, but help me train this person. So then now it's easier for myself because now I don't have to do the training.
Right. Right. And who better than her to train the next person that will take her role?
Yes. Yes.
So it sounds like this leader has inspired other leaders, and you should do the same. So,
Yes.
next question. Where are you and your team headed? What is the long term vision?
Well, the long-term vision is where my team's headed is turning it into an expansion team, right? Meaning that I have multiple teams and throughout the country. So getting to the point where my role is to help people start a team. So that's the way I would build the holding golden handcuffs. So let's say one of my associates wants to become a leader of the team. Great. Here you go. Right. Buy a piece of the franchise, be a silent partner. Now let's go expand here in this city near. Right. So then we have another team there. Right. And then if we have somebody else reaching out of state, hey, I want to start a team under your brand, I'm basically just going out there and training them on how to start it. So the long-term vision is to have an expansion team and also grow into a partnership of mortgage, escrow, insurance. So that's the long-term vision. But the biggest thing for me is learning the hack of managing people. Because after that, this is my rough draft real estate because this is what I was born into. But I feel like once I master uh, building a good operation under my real estate, then that means once I get into helping somebody else, I could easily train them to do it because now I have mastered the learning how to manage people and creating a successful operation. So the long term is, of course, to build a successful real estate company, but more my long term is learning the hack of managing people and running a successful operation. Because after that, we could start a company of selling hats. But since we learned that hack, it's going to be a successful company. So that's more of my long term vision.
Brilliant. It's something replicatable. You're learning how to duplicate the system on another level,
Yes.
where it's more so a blueprint, sounds like, where you can put it into any office, any location in the country, and it should run about the same. So similar to a franchise, as you had mentioned, like running a McDonald's, but just in a different place, correct?
Yes. Yes. And see, like McDonald's, right? They did a great job on running an operation because then it was just, all right, we're going to do, nobody knows what the owners went through, right? It probably took them so long to figure it out. But once they figured it out, okay, now we're in a different city. We're going to do this, this, and this. And it's like, okay. And then success, okay, let's go. Right. So once they created that hack, they became successful. And I'm thinking in real estate, the hack has not been cracked yet because we're shifting, right? Early 2000s computers just took off. Old companies are not really knowing how to promote themselves digitally. So a lot of the old companies are fading away just because they don't know how to leverage new technology to market themselves. So I feel like for a lot of people in real estate, mortgage, like once you crack that hack of figuring out how to use these new systems, be successful to the new era, that's going to be the new takeover, right? So I feel like we're in the
That's
pivotal
right.
point. We're like in the pivotal point of where real estate's going to shift, right? A lot of the
So if you're
traditional
listening
practice are
to
going to
this,
change.
if you're watching this, perhaps there's a place in your sector and your industry where it's kind of the dinosaur era, but you also see the potential for expansion, the potential for more. Are you leveraging your social media to its full potential? Are you on all the channels? And so that's free advertising right there without the need to pay for ads. And it's just the more you do it, right? Keep it consistent. And how can you and your team help my listeners, Lil?
Well, the way we could help them is coming from abundance and that free advice. I mean, if you guys just want to call and say, where should I start to invest? Or motivation, hey, I'm having these issues, especially beginning entrepreneurs. Like I always offer my advice, whether it might click with you or not, but you have somebody here that's willing to give you an answer. If you call me and if you ask me, I'm going to answer you. And some of them just need that right conversation. And there's a saying, the right conversation at the right time could change your life. And going back to what Marisol
Ooh,
said,
I
how are you
like that.
leveraging digital platforms? I mean, look at the background. You got 1 billion all over, un billion, un billion, un
That's
billion.
right. Got my shirt too.
There you go. Me too. Me too. And I haven't answered your question yet
Beautiful.
about the 1 billion. So whenever you're ready. Um,
Ooh, right now. Perfect. So,
well,
Leo, question of the hour.
oof.
What does un beyond mindset mean to you? And how are you committed to fulfilling that definition?
Well, I think it's a great mindset. And I think it's great that you started this because it just ties back into my whole story. Biting off more than you could chew, having courage. What un billón truly means to me is thinking colossal, big, huge, right? Thinking huge, right? Not being, that takes a lot of courage. Some of you, you could tell people's mindset. I want you to sit down with your group of friends and say that you want to make $1 billion a year. And I want you to see
Mm-hmm.
their energy, right? They're going to think you're insane, right? But it takes insanity to create greatness. So for me, un beyond means thinking colossal, thinking big, having the courage to think bigger than somebody else, right? Hey, I want to become a millionaire. Hey, I want to become a billionaire, right? So for me,
Yes.
it's thinking colossal, thinking huge. So that's what 1 billion means to me. The
Ooh,
way
Leo, you got it. You got it. Ooh,
I
I'm so
feel goosebumps
excited.
right now. Um,
Yeah,
but
beautiful.
I'm thinking for me, it's $1 billion. And for those listeners that think, oh, money hungry, no, because once you start getting to a pivotal point where you want to be more successful, money is not the motivation. You have to change your mindset. But of course, my goal is to achieve a 1 billion net worth because then that would lead me to that feels like I've accomplished my goal. I ran a successful real estate business. I've helped other entrepreneurs run their real estate businesses. I created successful companies, multi-generational wealth for my family, to the point where I could achieve my dream job. And guess what my dream job is, Marisol? You'll never guess it. I'll give
Your
you $1
dream
billion
job.
dollars if you guess my dream job.
Is it related to your industry? Drop a hint. No?
No,
Oh, it's totally different.
totally different.
Dream job? Not related
Dream
to your
job.
industry.
And I
And mind
think,
you, your industry, I'm thinking still leadership, giving back to others in
no,
that knowledge and mentoring, no?
Here, I'll tell you, it's hard. You're
Not
gonna guess it.
oh my
You're
gosh,
gonna guess.
is it not having one? Is it just doing whatever
Well,
you
this
want
is
whenever you want?
so the $1 billion is to achieve the lifestyle I want for myself and my generations to come, right? But my
Yes.
dream job was to travel the world and taste coffee.
Mhm.
That's my dream job. They're not gonna
Oh,
pay me $1 billion to do it, but hey,
no.
once I have that
But
net worth, I could
yes.
take that position, travel around to be a coffee taster.
Oh, there
So
you
that
go. Oh, so I was close. I was
you
close
were
though.
you were
So
close. You were right there.
I just didn't mention coffee. Oh my gosh. And he hinted that if you're watching this, he has a coffee mug right now. But who
Yeah,
knew? It could have been tea.
that's true. It could have been chai.
You know what? I have not shared this on the show yet, but one of my drivers as to why I became a nurse is this in the background right here in my back upper corner. And I'm pointing to a memorial scholarship. And this scholarship was in memory of Rosemary Maldonado, who passed away in an automobile accident during high school. And so I learned of her story during high school. My counselor told me about it. Hey, it sounds like your path is nursing. Do you want to apply for this scholarship? She wanted to do something in medicine. And I said, I looked into her story. It turns out that her brother was also autistic as mine, who recently passed away a month ago. So I feel I'm getting all these signs from God. I'm religious as well. And it's just motivating me that much more to seed this mindset in others and impact that many more people. So I'm so glad that you purchased the Un Beyond shirt, that you're supporting the movement. And if you want a shirt right as well, if you're listening to this, they're $50 right now. And you can buy one by contacting my team on Instagram at Enfermera Mar y Sol.
Yes, and I think it's a beautiful movement. Bless your heart.
Thank
There's
you.
people that I meet, and it's just you've taken so much action, and I feel like this is something big. So, thank you for doing this. Thank you for having me, and I'm
Absolutely.
excited to see your journey. I am, and I'm gonna wear this shirt all day today, by the way. So, uh,
Thank you. And hey, tell your team about it. Have them all represent as well, because this is a mindset that they should all have.
that's true. That's true. So they're gonna ask me about it. They're like, Leo, your shirt, Leo.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, I'm
So
gonna have to print some more, guys. Keep it coming.
let's go, guys.
Send in
Come,
your
they're not one
requests.
billion dollars yet. Come on.
That's right. So, for a limited time, and this is the first edition. So,
Mhm.
definitely get yours today. Thank you for your time, Lil. I appreciate it. And I look forward to having you again, perhaps a year from now, and we can look back, compare and contrast, and keep adding value to our listeners.
No, I think that's perfect. Bless your heart. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Un billón.
Likewise. Un
Bye.
billón. Bye.